problem is, people are too comfortable. And it's so sad. A lovely ivory prison that you're stuck in, and the money just keeps you there until you burn out. So how can you do this quick, fast and sharp? We'll buy properties at £50,000. We'll buy properties 1.1 million up to a couple of million. Just pick something that is gonna work for you, where you can actually get into it. So you learn, you take the action, you systemize it, you then expand by delegation, and then you remunerate. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I have so many of these conversations until I tell them the next bit.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Property People. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Kam Dovedi. How are you, Kam?
Thank you very much. Very, very well. Thanks for inviting me, Sam.
Thank you for coming. I know that you are local to this area. We're sitting in East London. You were just saying that you've got so many stories of your childhood around these, which we'll get into in just a moment. But I wanted to share a little bit about your background, a little bit of an intro. You're the creator of the Premier Property Club, the founder of the Premier Portfolio Builder, and the founder of the Premier Property Education company.
A lot of P's in there, isn't there?
A lot of P's, tongue twisters for me, testing me out. You specialize in helping people who want to learn the process of property investing the correct way. And over the last 25 years, you've built up a significant multi-million-pound portfolio for yourself. So from property portfolio building, property investing, one-to-one property mentorship, you're a property developer yourself, and speaker, buy-to-let expert, and author, and many more things. It's great to have you on here to share your experiences, the problems you've come across over the years, the solutions that you've put in place, and the secret sauce to your success. But before we go to that end of where we are today, I always like to find out a little bit more about you personally and where it all started, especially the type of person you were at school. Did you always know you were going to be in property? Were you a good student, hardworking? Were you a rebel without a cause? Tell me.
Oh, well, actually, I was born just around the corner from here. We're in Stratford right now. Yeah, I mean, in terms of school, yeah, I did my best, but I wasn't really great at school. Always got into the top set at the bottom. So always negotiate my way up. And to be fair, getting from school and back home and from home to school, that was a negotiation in itself. So, the thing is, people like me either go one of two ways. Either they go down the criminal route, or they go down the business route, where they tend to do really well because they're very streetwise and very resourceful people. What I would say is what kept me grounded is my mother. I come from a very poor background. She was a very hard-working woman. I'd see her working 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and still see her working at home. Stuff like that keeps you on the right path, doesn't it? And hence, I fell into property by mistake.
So at school, not the most studious. I was at an event last night, and they were talking about this one particular person, this lady. She sold a couple of businesses, one to B Sky B and another one to Lloyd's TSB Bank. And she was saying that all the best entrepreneurs are failures at school, or not failures. They're C-grade averages. They're kind of like good at it, but not so much. And they've usually got an element of ADHD.
Interesting that. I mean, I wasn't even a C grade, to be fair. The truth is, we're told at school, aren't we, to sit quietly, listen to what's being said, don't move. You're just part of a whole system in a block. And what are we really what's really happening? My view is what's really happening is we're just groomed to become employees. Yeah, you might earn your 20K, your 40K. You get to your 120, 150 before you burn out. The larger the company, yeah, the more cash they throw at you. But that's typically it. And as you're aware, as many of our listeners are aware, 45, 50+% of that goes straight to tax anyway. You can't do anything about that. What's left is thrown at you. And you're just in if I may say, I call it a lovely ivory prison that you're stuck in, and the money just keeps you there until you burn out. And that's really the kind of feeling I got at school. So I was the kid who actually discussed things with other people. I was the kid who got everybody else to actually do the work. Yeah, that was cool.
And you basically practicing your delegation skills at an early age. And so, with growing up around these parts of East London, tell us about, it's a very different place nowadays. You've got the Westfield, you've got the Olympic Village, you've got Hackney Wick, which is the cultural hub of Europe and stuff. When you were growing around here, how was it different?
Well, it's a bit of yin and yang. I mean, to be fair, I parked my car here, if I'm being honest with you. I just parked my car here and you feel the edge. It's a bit edgy. But then I grew up in these parts, so I get the mentality. Very resourceful people, just disrespected, and they don't know what to do. A little bit of direction can do such amazing things. I mean, recently they've done this documentary on me, which is coming out soon. And I thought, why would anybody want to watch that? And they said, no, you're really inspiring. I'm like, am I really inspiring? I don't really think I'm inspiring. Oh, no, you're really inspiring. And anyway, they took me back to now it's known as Shoreditch, where my kind of life started, and in these parts. And I was so depressed for 3 days of filming, just thinking about my naff life, let's just say, that I had. And it just dawned on me, right? Just a little bit of direction, just someone saying, how about if you do it like this? Or I've done it like this. A little bit of direction can, really, speak volumes and do so much for you.
And you mentioned your mum, who was inspiration to you, hardworking, good work ethic, probably good morals as well. And that helped you. Was it specifically her that got you there, or was there other people, either school teachers or other local business people, that kind of give you that spark of inspiration?
Yeah, well, I'm sure as listeners are listening right now, there's people that come in your life that help you, and sometimes you wonder, why the heck are you helping me? You'll meet people like that in your life. I'm not saying everybody, but I can count them on two hands now. There are people like that, and they genuinely want to assist you and help you, and I've been lucky enough to have those people in my life as well.
And you said that you fell into property. We've done another interview earlier today, and exactly the same story, that they fell into it. I can't resonate with that, because from 10 years old, I always wanted to be an estate agent. I always wanted to be in property because I was inspired by a best friend's dad who was a big property mogul, and I always wanted to be like him, and it just happened to be he was in property. So you fell into it. So tell us how that story.
Well, I fell into it in the way that, my family's not from property. They're just very hardworking people. And at the age of 19, a family member, a cousin, actually wanted to buy a property. His wife could get part of the mortgage. And her husband couldn't. So, I mean, you're in the mortgage brokerage industry, you understand. So what I actually was a mortgage host at the age of 19.
Wow.
The only challenge was, this was back in 1989, and there was a lot of gazumping going along, and they bought this property, which was really much more than the actual value of that property at that time. They probably paid around 20% plus of what the property is actually worth.
Wow.
Because they were emotionally attached, and it's very easy to get emotional.
Sure.
Yeah, we all understand that. And they bought this property, and the interest rate, as soon as we bought this property, went up to 17.5%. The bank, the building site at that time was Leeds and Holback Building Society. That building society isn't around anymore. However, the property still is. And that Leeds and Holback Building Society, the interest rates went to 17.5%, which is shocking, isn't it? I mean, if you think about what's been happening over the last decades. Many people don't even realize that interest rates can actually go that far. I mean, what we've had over the last decade has been a dream, to be fair. And what we've got right now, my view is that they're very workable interest rates, actually. They're not high, they're very workable. And the interest rate went to 17.5%, and the property values fell. They plummeted. And we were in a negative equity situation. So just for clarity, the mortgage was more than the value of the property. And then my cousin said, I don't want it anymore. You have it.
Here are the keys.
Here are the keys. So what do you do, in that sort of situation? So you like to be amicable. So I said, okay, young and naive. I like to keep that little bit of naivety, by the way. It keeps the doors open. Too many people close up the doors, and they don't sort of grow because they're not looking for the next challenge, next thing. Anyway, so took the property on, and then they decided not to move out. If you can imagine, you try explaining that to your building society.
So there was tenants that were in there.
No tenants, they were living there.
They were actually living there.
They
said,
were living there.
Here's the keys, but we don't want to pay the mortgage.
And then they said, oh, we're not paying the mortgage and we're not moving out. So I was literally the best part of 2 weeks away from repossession. So you can imagine, you're just starting out, and that happens, right? I did my best. I worked in many places, short term, very short term to be fair. People talk about giving up their job and doing property. My view is you don't need to do that, because you need to cover your necessities. You've got to live, and it's going to help your finance anyway. So I did lots of honest jobs. You name it, I've done it. You know, I've worked in McDonald's at the age of 17. I've worked as in a dairy, all sorts of odd jobs. Been a postman, all honest, good jobs. It's okay. You're doing an honest job. You're putting money where it needs to be. And I aim to pay that mortgage off. However, it just wasn't enough. I don't want to get all woo-woo on you, but the universe seems to align itself towards you. And it usually is. Now, easy to say this, but when you're in it, it doesn't feel so great. Your biggest growth is in your biggest adversity. So if you're listening to this right now and you're feeling a little bit down on your luck, well, the worse your luck is, the bigger the opportunity you're going to get thrown at you by the university at the time that you least expect it. So that's what happened to me. So eventually they moved out. They moved out and I was left with this property and I thought, what the heck do I do with this? How do I now cover the mortgage? That's what my aim was, just to cover the mortgage. And what I realized is that at that point, that there's a lot of people that were renting out, but they were renting out as a whole unit, as a whole home. There weren't anybody who's really renting it out on a room-by-room basis. And my aim was just to cover the mortgage. Now, quite a lot of tips in this if you're really listening to this in depth. One of the tips of what I realized is that if you focus on just making the money, that's not really good enough. Your business, because property is a business, is very short-lived. However, if you focus on genuinely solving a problem and assisting people in some way, the money will follow, because we're in property, highest price asset that you would buy in your lifetime. So the problem I fixed then was that I rented out room by room. I rented to tenants that couldn't afford a whole house, and they needed a room. So that's what I did. And at the end of the month, I found that there was a good amount of money left over, typically around 500 to 800 pounds per calendar month. This is back in 1989, was left over after paying all the bills.
And this was accidentally. So you were like, okay, I need to find some money to cover the rent. But then it's like, okay, I can't find somebody to pay. So, but this person actually wants it just for the room. And then if I did it there, and then, so it kind of fell upon it.
Fell upon it, exactly. What I didn't realize, what I'd actually done is created a HMO business over 30 years ago. You know, so probably one of the first landlords to actually create HMOs, and it was a shock, and it was a nice surprise. So actually, in a strange way, my cousin actually did me a favor. As I say, you know, your biggest growth is in your biggest adversity, and they set me onto this path of property. And then, you know, if you're like me, you get the bug for it, and I did it again. I went to university just to get the degree. I didn't really. Everybody else did the work for me, really, to be honest.
What degree did you get?
I did business and IT. I don't know why IT, because I hate IT. But anyway, the business side was all right, you know. Anyway, so we got the degree. But the point is, rather than renting, I bought a house there. So and so
whereabouts?
So this was in Wolverhampton.
Wolverhampton.
Wolverhampton, yeah, Wolverhampton University. It was the first year actually that became a university. And Park Village was the little place that we had. Number 77 Leslie Road was my second HMO, without actually realizing it was a HMO. And then from there, it then went on.
Interesting. So now there's two properties then. You've got one here, one in Wolverhampton, and you're thinking, okay, I think I can make a career out of this. You know, because you've got a business degree, and you know, you could almost do anything. It's like, why continue in property? And how, and like, the biggest challenge most people have coming out of university is, how am I going to get more money for deposits and stuff? You know, how am I going to earn enough money to be able to show? And buy-to-lets probably weren't even a thing back then. Buy-to-let mortgages.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, thank you, Sam. You're making me sound very intellectual, but actually, it wasn't anything like that. There was no career path or anything like that. It was just random stuff I was doing without realizing that there was going to be a purpose to it 30 years later, where we're sitting now. So it was just trying stuff, doing stuff, and action is important. So yeah, and I wanted to buy the next one and so on. And you're quite right. You become resourceful. There's so many different ways of finding money. If you really want to make this work, you genuinely want to make it work, you need to put some effort into this. And if you put the effort into it, you will get a result. The problem that we have is many people don't put the effort in. And if they do put the effort in, they only put it in for a short term. People are expecting instant results. This is not an instant business. Actually, to be fair, what is? You know, nothing is instant. However, what property does, what I realized, is that actually it creates a lot of capital, and it does create a lot of income, and it does create that passive investment that we've all heard about, and it does give you that financial freedom that we've all heard about. It's the truth. It works. Effort is required. And now, what I didn't have, which we do have, and my students have now, is a system, a way on how you can do these things quicker, faster, in a much more de-risked way, and actually get a better result faster. I'm saying a number of different words which all mean the same thing. But anyway, you can do it faster, you can de-risk it, and you can do it safely. And over my time, over the last 30 years, without realizing, to be fair, it's been over the last decade more more of an agenda, if you like, to create systems and processes. Now, with an agenda, we create system processes. With the first 10, 15 years, wasn't. It was just randomly doing this, that, and the other. However, a lot of people benefit from me in that way because they use our systems and they achieve the same results in a much faster, like what I say, de-risked time frame and safely.
So your approach was random and opportunistic, it sounds like. But you probably made some fairly good common sense decisions. Market might have fallen in your favor after having a really hard time, with interest rates at 17.5%. And then over time, you've learned, okay, systems and processes are important. And then it sounds like you've ended up just teaching all of that to other people about, look, this is the way I did it, this is the way you shouldn't do it, and this is a better way of doing it that I've learned possibly the hard way, and you've shared those stories along the way. So in terms of looking at a deal and determining whether it's a profitable deal or not, there's two ways that I always kind of think you've got to look at it potentially is either I'm going to buy and hold it or I'm going to buy and sell it. And what was your approach? Were you always going to buy and hold everything from when you were buying them? Were you going to buy and sell it, or is it literally case by case? Have you sold a lot of properties? We're in the PLD offices. There's another episode that we've done with AJ, the CEO here. He always says never sell. My dad always says never sell unless you can buy something else with the same money. So what's been your approach on those two things?
So my view, I'm of a similar view. I like to buy and hold property. So if you think about it, people that have become wealthy over a period of time, actually it's the point that they've kept the property because the values keep going up. Because as we're aware, we need 300,000 homes year upon year. Property values will increase. And every time you've said, or I've said actually, prices can't double again. And listeners can think about their experience. In the correct investment areas, whenever you said prices can't double again, look at the situations right now. Well, look at the circumstances. They can't double again. They always double. Typically over a 10-year period. So people that actually become wealthy, they become extremely wealthy. It depends on what you want to do, right? A little bit of wealth or wealthier or extremely wealthy. It's your choice on how you want to do it. However, the long term tends to help. The medium term to long term tends to help. So that's my personal view.
You like to
I like to hold it. However, at the same time, you do need seed capital. So a number of people join venture with me because obviously, this is what we're doing day in, day out. So they find a lot of safety in that. And when people join venture with you, then at that point, I always like a clear exit. We could talk about joint ventures. I've had many joint ventures. I've done 11 million pounds of joint ventures so far. Some not so great, some very, very, very good, and a lot of learnings there. So one of the learnings with joint ventures is that it's really important that you have a clear exit because people change, people's circumstances change. And if you're in it for the medium to long term with other people, those things can happen. So my view is that there should be an exit plan with your joint venture partner. For that reason, I am answering your question, but sharing all the info as we're going along. So with joint venture partners, we tend to have an exit strategy, and that usually is a sale or an exit of that joint venture partnership.
Good. And you brought up joint ventures, and you've done a significant amount of those. And I would like to ask you, actually, the good, the bad, the ugly. So what ingredients do you need to make a good JV partnership work?
Great question. So first thing is to make sure that you're doing it legally correctly, that you're not breaking FCA regulations. There's a lot of people out there who are doing interesting things. I'll say it, crazy stuff. Promoting the joint ventures on Facebook or standing up at networking events saying, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that, here's my project. And they don't even realize that they're actually breaking FCA regulations, specifically PS 13/3. You've also got to be aware of collective schemes, which are regulated. So joint ventures can be done. However, you really need to learn the specifics of making sure that you're doing this legally correct, because the difference between not doing it legally correct and doing it correct is 12 inches
12 inches?
of a prison wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my aim is not to scare anyone. My aim is to just mention, just do it correctly. And by the way, you can do it correctly. So that's the thing. So that's the first thing. Joint ventures. What do you want to know about joint ventures?
So to do it correctly, you've got to do it. Yeah, you don't want to be a collective investment scheme. You need to make sure you're working with high net worths. You need to make sure that you are not advertising to retail investors. Projecting kind of variable returns and this, that, and the other. That's one of the things that's really important. What about things like? Somebody once told me, Sam, to do a good joint venture, you need to make sure that you've got the same mindset, same vision, but different skill sets. Because if you're all trying to do the same thing, then that's always a bit of a challenge, because you both want to. Interestingly, one of my joint venture partnerships that I work well with, we've made it work. We're both estate agents by background. So, in an ideal world, one of us would have been a contractor or an architect, and the other one would have been an estate agent. So somebody deals with the finding of the asset, somebody deals with the value add, and then somebody else deals with the management. But we actually came from the same background. But because we had the same vision and mindset, and we worked together very well in the past, we kind of made it work. But that's one way of making it work well. Are there any other things that you think that are, is a long-standing relationship important, or can you meet somebody in a networking event overnight and jump into bed with them?
Yeah. So first of all, what you just said there is absolutely right. And if I could just amplify that further, if I may. Yeah. So there's actually three key parts to joint ventures. The first is we've already discussed, right, is to be making sure that you're doing this legally correctly. The second part is to make sure that whoever you're dealing with, that you're meeting them on a continuous basis, and they've got to fit into two realms, two specifics, and that is they need to be making a financial commitment. So that could be a community, where you're joining a community, you're being part of that community on a regular basis. There's some finance involved to join that community. So what this does is it separates the talkers from the action takers, because everyone can talk about action, but when it comes to putting money out of your pocket, you're separating yourself from the dreamers to the people that are actually setting goals, and that's completely different. So in that, you're looking for a community where you're paying more money, and that really helps. Think about, listeners can think about anywhere where they've been, right? If you've been in a VIP environment, whatever that may be, you get a different type of clientele than you do where everything is free.
Yeah.
So that's one part.
Yeah, it's a good filtering process if you were willing to put your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely. So this is the first criteria. So we've got the finance commitment in a community. The second thing is a time commitment. Now, the great thing about property is you don't really actually need a lot of time when you're doing it properly, actually. Something maybe we can discuss on another day. You don't need a lot of time. So there needs to be some time involved. So if you're in a community where you're meeting on a regular basis, where you have some time commitment in there with that financial commitment, now you're speaking to potential people, and you're quite right, you're filtering. So this is part of your filtering process. So that's really good. The second thing is that you need to be aware of the values. Now, your values, if they're identical, then that's brilliant, because you're really going to get on. You mentioned your estate agency friend. You probably realized, or probably didn't realize, subconsciously, if you're following this, that your values are actually aligning. So many people say...
Yeah, 100%. Our values align 100%.
Yeah. So, you know me quite well. So when you come along to Premier Property, for example, what kind of values do you feel?
Yeah, when I come over there, I feel community, I feel family values, because which I hold in high regard. Integrity, honesty, transparency, and a genuine effort to actually help other people elevate to your own level.
Actually, spot on. So when you think about that,
I should be. Should be on the
yeah. Well, it's true.
It's true.
People have different values.
I genuinely get that. Otherwise, I think that's why we get on, because I think we share those same sort of values, and that certainly comes across. I speak to the audience members actually, and I get that feeling from them that they're there for those reasons, and they're always happy, and they always come back, and they've been going for some time. So I'm not just saying it for the sake of it. It's genuinely something I've
Yeah, no,
experienced.
say it as it is, and this is what we're here. And the thing is, your listeners, our listeners here, us, the reason that we're here, and so on. It's the values aligning. So
Yeah,
those
yeah,
values
100%.
actually are, I would say, actually are my personal core values. And then your business extrapolates those values. Now, different people have different values. I'm not saying wrong or right. All I'm saying is different people work in different ways. So if your values align directly, or if your values are very similar, well, then that's your second vetting process with what we already discussed. So the time and the finance that someone spent to be in a community with the values, you're almost there. But there is also a third part. Yeah. And the third part is skill sets. Now, there's no real point in doing a joint venture where you exactly align with the exact same skill set. So if you've got money and I've got money, well, we've got money, but how about all the rest of it? Yeah. If we're both looking for the money, none of us had the money, however, we were both contractors, well, that's not going to work either. So, and actually, it's a common mistake that many investors make when they're looking for JV partners. So, what I would suggest that you look for, what I personally look for, is opposing skill sets. For example, many people join venture with us because we have the skill sets of the knowledge, we have the experience, we've got some very good contacts, there's sincerity, all of that kind of stuff, right? And they'll plug in with some of the funds, yeah, some of it, sometimes all of it, or whatever it is, in that way. But you see, there's opposing skill sets, if you like. Even the funds, bringing the funds to the table is a skill set. Yeah. So you're looking for different things that align, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, 100%. So then we go into strategies. So what sort of property strategies? So we've got the buy-to-lets, we've got the commercial conversions, you've got the development ground up, you've got HMOs, you've got service accommodation, you've got all these different property strategies, and I know for a fact that in the rooms that you teach, these are the sorts of things that many depending on who they are, what they're doing, this is how they're making money from it. You've got rent to rent, you've got property sourcing that are considered property strategies. Which one is your favorite and why? Premier Property are our proud sponsors of this episode. Premier Property Club is made up of events, education, and mentorship. Their goal is to take your property investing to the next level. The Property Premier Club allows you to learn from UK leading property experts, network with them, like-minded individuals, and be part of a supportive community. I have, on a number of occasions, been invited to join their expert panel to share my 20 plus years of experience with members. So they get some really, really good people on there, if I do say so myself. By attending Premier Property Club events, you get immediate access to the latest and best strategies, all of the property information that's going on currently, all the professionals, and helps you become more successful in your career. To be part of this supportive, growing, and dedicated community, simply click on the links below in the show notes of this episode, or reach out to us so we can put you in direct contact with them, so you can go out, enjoy an evening of information, networking, and motivation. Now back to the episode.
So either you're buying and selling, whatever it is, and that could be many of the different niches that you just mentioned there, or you're buying and holding.
So you got these two ultimates, and then you've got all these subcategories underneath.
Yeah, and there's massive tax advantages to these, depending on which one you're doing.
And profit advantages.
And profit, exactly. However, to answer your question, just remind me of the question then. What was the question?
The question is, what's your favorite strategy and why? So, okay, so you got buy and hold, buy and sell. I mean, you're saying buy and hold an investment strategy because you like the long-term capital growth and you'd probably double in value. But if we were to go down the subcategories, okay, so buying and holding, is it HMOs? Is it service accommodation? Are you doing commercial conversions? Are you doing ground up and then holding by build to rent? Where do we go from there?
Okay, so let's discuss what's on the table today. So typically on a monthly basis, we have anywhere between 7 to 12 projects on the go. Now, by the way, that is a lot. However, if someone is then, look, we're investors and developers foremost. However, because of this, I train people. But you'd expect that, wouldn't you, if someone's training you?
I love that. I think For me personally, that's the best way to be.
Yeah. To answer your question directly then, so the buy and hold strategies that work really well. We're liking HMOs where we are in the market right now. And buy-to-lets, when you look at where we are in the market right now, private rented sector, no, it doesn't matter which government comes in, we are very much needed. You are needed, listener. Yeah, you're needed in the private rented sector because the accommodation is required. I mean, it's not, we all aware of that, right? So
The government's not going to solve all the rental problem. The private rented sector is always going to be there because the government literally, otherwise, it's just not going to solve that accommodation problem.
I agree with you. Yeah. So private rental sector is needed. So buy-to-lets really work really well. Remember, work them on the percentages because the percentage is what you're really
So like
assessing.
yields.
So you work on the percentage of the yield. You work at the percentages of the discount as well, in a percentage of according to market value. You work out your cash return.
Yeah.
And it's a percentages. It's not the actual number, and they add up. So that's another one. Discussing sort of if you want to call them bigger strategies. So we do a number of commercial conversions. We've got 3 projects on the go right now. These we tend to do in larger towns. So these are in London, for example. So we've got a project in Camberwell New Road going on in South East London right now. That's an office building. That's 3 offices, which we're converting with permitted development into residential. So 3 residential flats. Things like that. Now ticket price there, we're looking at, we bought that for 575. It was worth around 900,000 before we even bought it. And we'll probably make around, £300,000 as a net profit from that.
Lovely.
So these kind of numbers start to become the norm with conversions. Also, we do new builds. New builds work, again, in large cities. They don't work in smaller towns necessarily as well. They work well in larger cities, and they also work in satellite towns, in my experience. So I'm going to just give you one example. So we're building 9 flats in Kent, for example. And value of that is just over 1.5 million. And we'll make a good margin on that, which will work out to be around £550,000.
Wow.
Now, these are the kind of deals that you can do. There's larger deals. So we've actually been assessing projects for around 10 million. And very interestingly, it just comes back to the point I just discussed with you 5 minutes ago. Can you rewind this podcast?
The listeners can, yes.
Oh, great. Well, just listen back again because we're discussing a lot of stuff. What I just said 5 minutes ago. Rather than doing a £10 million deal, in fact, it's just this week, my senior analyst has been assessing this. You will find that your margins are much better at maximum 2 mil. From £50,000 to 2 mil is where you make the most margin, which I found really odd, actually. So,
interesting.
So you might as well do more of those rather than the massive thing.
So it's an interesting one. Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I've worked on projects that have been like 100-unit schemes, £20 million GDV. And at that level, there are people saying, there's not that many people playing at this level, so therefore there's more opportunity for us, and therefore the margins are potentially bigger. And then I've seen people operate in the kind of 1 to 3 million space saying, look, there's loads of people doing sub 1 million, and there's lots of competition there because everyone can get involved there. And so that's why we operate in the 1 to 3. And you're saying up to 2 million, you find that there's quite a good...
50K, £50,000. So we'll buy properties at £50,000 for buy-to-lets. We'll buy properties at 1.1 million up to a couple of million. For example, our offices, we own our offices. That's a £2 million deal, no money in deal. I could go on, but that type of projects, they tend to work. And it doesn't really matter. Just think about where you are. Just pick something that is going to work for you, where you can actually get into it. And these kind of numbers work. Now, one of my students, he's just doing a 30-unit project. I mean, this is before he met me. And he said, Kam, I was discussing this, what we're discussing here. And he said, you are so right on this. Keeping your units under 10, if you're developing, is such an important thing. Because when you're over 10 units, you've got affordable housing. Your utilities are completely different. We're getting a bit techie now on this, but this is how it is. The how you get your utilities, what the prices are for utilities. In fact, utilities start holding you at ransom when you're at 20 units. Things like lifts. Yeah, things like lifts. I mean, in a 10-unit building in London, for example, you're okay with a lift. You're going above that, you're looking at 2 or 3 lifts that you're having to put in place on a 30-story building, on a 30-unit building. So, yeah, I mean, the sweet spots are so important. And I'll go back to what I just said earlier. It's not about how big the deal is. It's about what works for you and being able to think about the percentages and doing a number of those, and that's absolutely fine, whatever that is for you.
It's interesting. I think that one of the quotes that I always say regularly is Warren Buffett one. The biggest risk is not knowing what you're doing. And if you're really comfortable doing those sub £1 million projects, which I personally am for myself, and these are the types of deals that I do, the leap from going from that to doing, a 20, 30, 40, 50 unit scheme where it needs to be phased and, trial pits for multiple kind of ground investigations and contamination and this and that and the other. And, I know you got Network Rail, which has got you got to get a build agreement. All of these sorts of things that you not necessarily have 20 years of experience in. Possibly, yes, the percentage might even look better on paper, but that's just a theoretical number on a piece of paper, and all the variables that might happen along the way might eat into that profit. Whereas you might have a very, very good, decent percentage on a deal that you know how to get your head around and actually deliver those numbers. And it's interesting that for somebody of your experience and breadth of years that you've been doing it, you still get as excited about the 50 to 100K buy to let that's got a good margin on it, to the multi-unit, commercial conversions and ground up developments in London. So the question is, which I think you've answered the previous one quite well. It depends on who you are and what you're doing, but focus on the numbers, focus on the returns. Deal sourcing. How do people go about finding these deals? Because you're saying that, up to 2 million, I find it quite easy to find these deals, and you're doing 7 per year, which is 1 every other month. How is it that you've become so prolific? And should people be looking in auctions? Should they be going direct to vendor? Should they be going to commercial agents or estate agents? How do you find deals?
Okay, so let's clarify this. So one of your statements that you just made there, it's easy. It is not easy. Effort is required. But you listening to this right now, you're putting the effort in anyway. What I've realized, so one of my businesses when I started was garments. And I am answering your question there, right? And I used to sell T-shirts for £2.99 to £2 for £5 up in this market in Kent, a place called Pratt's Bottom. And I kid you not. And and what I realized is actually the effort that we put in now is the same effort. It's the same effort. It's just a different set of rules. And the result of what you get is so much bigger. And all you got to do is learn the rules. So effort is required, but everyone is putting the effort in already anyway. Just learn a new way of doing things with this asset class. The learning is key, by the way. Yeah. So effort is required. Enough said there. So it's not easy, but what is easy? Yeah. Your results will be massive. I think I've nailed that point now. Enough, right?
Nothing worthwhile is easy.
Yeah, nothing worthwhile is easy.
So it's always going to be the effort.
Yeah, there ain't no get rich quick. There's none of that. What you can do though, and many of my students have done this, within 12 to 24 months, you can reach your financial freedom if that's what you desire, actually. So it is very achievable, and it's very achievable. So I forgot your question now. What was the rest of your question?
Where to find deals? So it's not easy, but where do we find deals?
Where do we find deals? Right, okay, so deals. So 88% of our deals come from estate agents. Estate agents are a wonderful resource. They work for you for free. And actually, they're always working for the seller. What the agent does for the seller isn't really what the seller thinks the agent does. Agents are very professional people, the ones that we deal with, and they really work their socks off. So 88% of that work is done for you. Great thing, leverage. You can leverage just about everything in property. So that's great. So estate agents. About 10% of our deals come directly from the seller, so direct-to-vendor strategies that we use. So leafleting, direct marketing, online marketing, various different ways going directly to the seller. And by the way, the best strategies when you're making them creative is when you can speak to the owner-occupier. When you can carve a deal that works for them and works for you. So many of our creative deals are usually directly through the direct-to-vendor channels. And then about 2% of our deals come from auctions. Now, as we're keeping the conversation honest, there's a load of BS that is sold at auctions. There are, in fact, sellers even buying at auction. There are sellers buying at auction their own lots and things like that. There's all sorts of unscrupulous stuff that goes on, although it's all legally scrupulous, if you know what I mean. So, lots goes on. People also sell in auction and make money. They buy in auction and make money. However, amongst all of that, they're about 2% of what we look for. You know, we vet that very carefully. There are some serious, solid deals in auctions. Typically, you know, we look for a 25 to 35% reduction from market value at an auction.
Is that from the end market value that is kind of 35% down, or are we talking about like actually it's a rundown property and if we bought it at 35%, it'd be from that value down, or is it from the end value down?
Yeah, good question. So we look at end value versus all costs. So otherwise, you never get a deal. So if there's, for example, if you've got a house, let's say, simple example, let's say you've got a house with a piece of land on the side, and right opposite on that same street, there's a house with another house being built where there was a piece of land. You've got a very strong precedence. And so we would work the value out with the fact that that house has been built. So in this way, you'd work out a margin. We'd also incorporate, if we didn't get it for whatever reason, de-risking.
The planning,
we would
yeah.
say, what would happen if we didn't get any planning? Would this still wipe its face? Will it still work? Could we put it back into an auction? Could we still sell it somewhere? So we work that out as option one, not as option two.
Yeah, the
mistakes
worst case, base case.
Yeah. So so the case of what it is at the moment, and then you work out the value in that way.
So auctions, I find it very difficult to buy anything in an auction. Everything goes for more money than I think it's worth. And I do a bunch of research. You're in this constant hamster wheel of kind of like, right, the catalog comes out. You've got to look at so many different lots. And then you highlight, let's say, 3, 4, 5 of them. Because you can't go into too much depth on too many lots. And then especially going through all the legal packs, and especially if you want a solicitor to look at it. And then I end up identifying the one that I like. And I work out my max bid. And then 2 weeks later, you arrange a viewing, so you go out and you see these properties as well, just to make sure you like them and there's nothing that comes up. De-risk, due diligence, all of that. And then eventually it goes way above what you were ever going to pay for it. And then you try again the next 6 weeks later or the next catalog later. And constantly doing this for a year and a half. And I was like, every single thing that I've looked at has gone for more money than I think it's worth. And I just could never find a deal.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I have so many of these conversations until I tell them the next bit. Do you want the next bit? We're talking about auctions now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's discuss a bit about auctions. So, when it comes to auctions, what we've got to remember is the amount of money that we're actually making. So, let's say you factor in, first of all, 12 months. And in that 12 months, if you could just find one project, just one project in 12 months, well, let's say you made 100K from it, which, by the way, in this world of property, is so doable. Just one project, 100K. Yeah? So you set yourself a goal that in 12 months, you're going to find a project. Now, the key with this is tenacity. Many people give up too fast. Many people don't even get started. And if they do get started, they're looking for that instant result that we talked about right at the beginning. However, if you can give yourself a timeline of 12 months, and in that 12 months, you create the tenacity that no matter what, you're going to keep going, you're going to keep going, you're going to stay in. Staying in is so important.
Yeah.
You're going to get a deal. Now, let's talk about some specifics. Let's discuss specifics on how you can do this quick, fast, and sharp. Because people, and you're quite right, what you just explained there, people suck in a lot of time. Not their fault, they're doing their best. So how do you minimize your time? Because your time is everything, isn't it, when you think about it? You know, as I've become wealthier, I measure my time from deals done. So, I mean, actually, it's an exercise I do on a sort of a weekly basis on a Sunday usually. So the last measure was £47,500 per day. Yeah, that's not my tax return because we minimize tax legally and correctly. However, that's £47,500 per day worked out from deals done. Now, you know, I'm not saying that to impress anybody, just to impress upon you that anyone can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. Yes, you might need a system and you might need some help on it, but it can be done. So how can you do this quick, fast, and sharp? So first thing, the tenacity we just discussed. So let's discuss 3 points that are really relevant. The first one is when you're looking at these projects, look for the quick win. So the first thing that we do when we come to auctions is we go straight to the legal pack and we go straight to the special conditions. Because if there's any problems or challenges, where you're going to find them is in the special conditions. So if that property is a problem property, there's no point of you doing any further due diligence then after the special conditions. And you will find that in many cases, that property falls down at the special conditions. So how much time have you actually spent? Usually we spend about 10 to 15 minutes on the special conditions. So we don't go to view the property because what's the point? If the special condition says that it's not worth viewing the property,
It's got a huge covenant or something on it. It's restrictive covenant. Or it's got
could be restricted covenant, there could be overages, there could be buyer's fees, there could be so many different things in there which people aren't aware of. So you check the special conditions first. Now, if it passes the special conditions, then we'll look through the rest of the legal pack. Then we'll assess the deal. Desktop. If the deal works at desktop, we'll only then go and view the property. Now, the thing is, yes, you're quite right. You're going to have to view properties because sometimes they will sell. In most cases, they do sell. However, what you're going to do when it doesn't sell and you haven't done your due diligence, you've then got literally a couple of hours to secure that deal. And if you haven't done your due diligence, you haven't done all of that up front, you're not going to be able to make an offer, are you? And keep in mind what I just said earlier. You're looking for a deal, let's say, over a 12-month period. So the tenacity is important. All the stuff I just shared with you, and you can do this in a fast, quick approach. I've just shared with you a whole methodology on how you can do it.
It makes sense. I think I ended up giving up on probably just shy of 12 months or probably just over 12 months. I just found it really, really demoralizing.
Stay in. Community.
But you know what?
Hang around with us. When's the last time you had lunch with me?
Yeah, no, it's very true. But you know what I did do, though? I did 550 deal appraisals in 18 months on the HMOs, which I was more inclined to pursue. That was my thing.
And did you get some?
Oh, yeah, I got a whole flurry of them.
Well,
After 550 deal appraisals in 18 months and traveling literally the length and the breadth of the country. But they were all through estate agents and commercial agents and this sort of thing. The auction method was just a lot harder for me. I didn't do the direct-to-vendor marketing. If you had to only pick one, direct-to-vendor, agents, auctions, to find your deals, which one would you pick?
From estate agents as well? Or
estate agents, auctions, or direct-to-vendor marketing. You could only do one for the rest of your life.
Sure, I'll answer that question. Just finish off just for the listeners a bit more, some more value for listeners. On the auctions, don't look for your bog standard. Bog standard does not work.
That's actually where I was going wrong because I was looking at vanilla stuff. I had this property expert, auction expert telling me, Sam, you're looking at what everyone on the homes and the hammers are looking at. You're never going to find a deal.
Look for ugly, look for dirty, look for something that is off patch, look for something that other people don't want to touch, yet you find the value in it. And that's the key, being able to identify that. So that's on the auction. And to answer your question, your next one, I would say definitely estate agents. Because like what I say, 88% of our deals come from estate agents. And it's a fun environment as well. You create some great relationships. If you're a people kind of person, you get on with people, you enjoy it. There's a whole system there as well. If you're kind of a systems type person, I love it.
I think that's my favorite as well. So what would be your top tips for anyone that wants to grow a property portfolio? You've built your own multi-million-pound property portfolio over the years. It's a different landscape to 1989, never mind 1999 or 2009. We're in the 2020s and you've got young people coming out of university with lots of debt. And 30, 40-something-year-olds that want to think, okay, my pension's probably not going to work, so I want to build a property portfolio. I get lots of these inquiries saying, I want to start buying. I've got a little business, I've done quite well, it's a pharmacy or a dentistry practice or something, and I want to start investing for the future for my kids. What's the top tips that you'd be able to give these people if they want to grow a property portfolio?
Vote yourself off of Someday Island.
What? Say that again?
Vote yourself off of Someday Island, because someday will never come. Take the action and jump in. Now, what I realized is, with the jumping in, it's also, I'm getting a little bit older now, so the jumping in part, very important, is that you actually learn what the heck to do in the first place. Yeah, you wouldn't want to play, the World Cup in a football game, not knowing how to kick a ball at the goal, right? Yeah, you'd learn that, wouldn't you? Yeah, as many people do, right? So the key is jump in, vote yourself off, because nobody else is going to do that for you, and learn what to do. Now, when you're learning, be very careful who you get advice and information from, because there are a lot of talkers out there. I'm not going to mention anything else other than that. There's a lot of talkers out there. Make sure whatever advice or information you're getting, get it from people who are active right now and doing it now. Yeah? Don't be too concerned about people talking about big words and big numbers and this, that, and the other. Look for people, if you can find them, who are actually doing what you want to do.
So take action, take good advice.
learn first.
Take good advice, then take action.
Yeah,
That-
I used to
in
do
that
the. I
order.
used to do the other way around. That's quite painful, actually. You know, if there's a hole and I've been down that hole and don't imagine it, but I've smashed my face up and broken my nose and everything and climbed out of that hole, just my fingernails, and the fingernails have fallen off. Don't imagine that visually, right? And I can say to you, there's a hole down there. You'd surely jump over that hole, wouldn't you? You can always make new mistakes, and that's okay. However, as long as they're gentle in property, you'll be fine. So the learning and whatever, and I'm looking for people all the way to. I don't know everything. I'm always looking for guides. I'm always looking for what do they call themselves? Consultants. I call them mentors, to be fair. People that can stretch you up, people where they can show you what to do, and confirm what you're doing is correct, but not just by academic stuff, by the proof that they've actually done what you're doing, or they are doing what you're doing. That's the key. So learn, then take the action. Once you've taken the action, then you've got a very good paid job. That's probably what you wasn't looking for. So the next thing then is to start to systemize the process. Now, we can talk about systemizing. You hear people talk about systemizing. Systems are not difficult. We're talking about simple things that you do, that you create processes and systems. The next thing is then to delegate that as quick as you possibly can, while you still carry on taking action. Only delegate the part that you can 100% know that in your grounding, you can answer any question in that field. That bit you then systemize and you expand by delegation. And then what happens, whether you want to or whether you don't want to, you will end up teaching people, because it might be someone who, with their permission, you grab them saying, can you help me with this? It might be your other half or your family member or a good friend or someone like that, or might be a part-time employee or somebody, or as you grow your business. What you're going to find is you're going to end up teaching people, sharing with people on how you want the work to be done. So, and it becomes a perpetual cycle. So you learn, you take the action, you systemize it, you then expand by delegation, and then you remunerate or teach. We call this at Premier the laser formula.
The laser formula.
Laser formula. And of course, when you think about that, the more you learn, the more you do everything else, because it's an expanding scale.
Absolutely. I think that's a very logical way forward. And there's so many people that I personally believe in the benefits of property as an investment vehicle, and
Get yourself off of Someday Island.
Exactly. It's basically, stop hesitating. They say the best time to invest was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today.
I agree with you again. We're agreeing quite a lot, aren't we?
We do, unfortunately. It's not very controversial, this
Yeah.
podcast. But let's see if we can... I've got another question for you. Let's see.
There you go. That's controversial. Never use the word but.
However?
Because the word but will destroy your dreams. See, what I realize is whatever comes out of my mouth after the word but is usually a very good reason or a very good excuse, and that stops you in your tracks. Be very conscious of that word. There you go. That's controversial, isn't it?
So neuro-linguistic programming. I know you're all about mindset. The words that you say kind of formulate the world around you. So if you have negative words, buts, excuses, more of that sort of thing. I think we're agreeing again, unfortunately. But anyway, what comes first, the deal or the money? Let's see if we can agree on that.
What comes first, the deal or the money? You need both. However, you want the money within your reign, within your nearby, and the deal comes. I mean, the thing is, you need both. You do need both. It's a bit chicken and egg. However, if you're working with investors, you want to have banked some of your investors already, people in mind. You will have some of your capital. You should be able to liquidate some if required. So it's a bit of both. And your deal, you can always lengthen the deal, the time frame for the deal. We have something that we call at Premier the ketchup time frame. Like the old Heinz ketchup bottles, where it takes ages for the ketchup to come out. So, I mean, we can extend deals. You can extend deals to 5 months, 7 months, 12 months, even 18 months we've done as well. You can really stretch them. To be fair, sometimes the sellers are at breaking point after about 7 months, but you can stretch them depending on the type of deal. So I'm answering your question. The deal can be stretched. You need the money as well. Of course you do. Both work hand in hand.
Yeah, so my take, I think we're on the same page there as well. My take is always the first thing you need to know is it a deal or not? So the skill set of actually being able to run those numbers and make sure that you haven't missed any numbers.
Are never in a row. Your ducks are never in a row. They're never in a row. Ducks are never. You will never be ready. You are ready now, and what we do at Premier is we put the ducks in a row. In fact, the universe will test you, unfortunately or fortunately.
The universe always provides.
It will help you if you have the effort.
If you got the effort,
if you have the
yeah.
tenacity and you put in the effort of doing something, the universe will help. In my experience, anyway.
So yeah, it's,
So far, so good, touch wood.
Some people always believe like this. Oh, it's airy fairy stuff. Like, is it? I just gotta look in the mirror and The Secret and stuff. All these different motivational mindset stuff. But for me, it's actually worked out like that, and it sounds like it has for you as well.
Well, mindset is definitely important, but mindset is part of the equation. You've also got to learn the practicality of it and the technicals and the numbers. That's all very important. They're all, each of these, what's more important? Let's use an analogy. Is your left arm more important than your right arm, or your left leg, or your right leg? What's more important? They're all important. They all serve a purpose, don't they?
Yeah.
So in the same way, you've got to bring it all together. Some of the mindset is important. But what you don't also want is just mindset, and not actually do something. You've got to vote yourself off of you know what.
Someday Island.
That's right.
See, I am listening. And so what comes is the deal, and then the money comes then the deal, because otherwise you're going to be going window shopping, because the deal comes and goes with somebody else who's
You need
more
both.
prepared. You need.
Don't stop for any of them. You find the deal. The way it works is.
And what you're saying is actually, if you don't have the money at that time, you can maybe somehow creatively just get into legals or something and stretch the deal out as long as you can until the money comes anyway.
There's so many different ways. When I started, I didn't have any money. There was a time in my life. How many sad stories do I tell you?
The more the merrier.
Anyway, I won't go into all those stories. But there was a time in my life when I was £187,000 in credit card debt.
Wow.
Yeah, and I sourced so many deals. It took me 9 months to get myself back to zero. And it was an amazing feeling just to get back to zero. Trust me on this. So, and I was a deal sourcer. What I had though was a fire up my, that I had to do something. Yeah. So when you got that, see, the problem is people are too comfortable these days. And it's so sad because when you're comfortable, working your lovely 9 to 5, got the weekend off, got your 2 to 3 holidays every year, you can eat what you want to eat, you can wear reasonably what you want to wear. You're in that comfortable situation. The universe will throw stuff at you and make it complicated. Whereas if you're stretching yourself and you're growing, what you'll find is that it will come in your aid. So how does that relate to specifically what we're discussing here? Property, put the flag in the ground, get a deal secured, you will find the money. If you have the money, go out there looking for a deal, your money will find the deal. And if you haven't got any of it, we'll do a bit of both, and you will bring it together. Trust me.
You've got to have the faith.
You've got to believe a little bit in yourself. I mean, I never used to be fair. But you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start, haven't you? Start now.
So you do a lot of property deals and you do the training. What gives you more satisfaction? Is it securing your next property deal or your mentees securing their next property deal?
Do you know what? It's the buzz. And both give me the buzz. So when we secure a deal, so I'm on holiday, where we were somewhere fancy a couple of weeks ago, Malaysia somewhere in some island, those places.
Not Someday Island, was it?
It wasn't a Someday island. It was a sunny island. Anyway, after 3 days, I start itching to do a deal. The buzz of getting the deal, getting the next deal is so exciting. And I love when my students achieve results as well. It's a real buzz. Watching people gain confidence, watching people go from having to work for them, for other people, to actually having the security, knowing that, their wealth is created. I love that. I mean, I don't know what else I would do if I wasn't doing this. It's amazing. Watching people get results, the buzz. The key is the buzz.
And the training, tell us a little bit about the training company and what you do and how you help people.
I'll just show you what I do. And I'll show you what you shouldn't do. From my miserable life that I had for the last 30 years, plus 50 years actually, on how you can not be so miserable and do it in a better way and faster within your realms. I've trained over 200,000 people over the last decade, honestly training them from exactly what we're doing right now, and I'm very conscious of that. That's only what we'll share, what we're doing. And people really appreciate that because they see the sincerity and they learn stuff that they can actually apply. That's the thing.
Because the property education space, as you fully probably aware, it gets
Are we being PC?
Are we being PC? I hope not.
Look, everyone and their dog and cat has a property training company. You see them on the YouTube. Even I have to do some of these YouTubes. I'm not that great at YouTube. But everyone is doing it, right? The thing you got to ask yourself is, how are they doing it? Are they already a wealthy person? Go to company's house, check out their companies. How many properties do they actually have? You can check it on company's house. Check their companies, see what they're doing, how much money they're making. Are they doing property training to create their financial freedom? Which actually, if I'm honest with you, I frown upon that. Or are they already wealthy people and now they're training people because it is a service and this service should cost something because they do have a value. The person has a value. Are they doing it that way around? So look for that, I would suggest.
That's a good acid litmus test. Very good. So with this podcast being called Property People, you are obviously, with the vast amount of years of experience in the business, a property person. If somebody else wants to be successful in property, what sort of traits or characteristics do you think is necessary to have? You mentioned tenacity. What else?
Adversity.
They need to have had some adversity.
You need adversity. The worse situation you're in, the more you need it. Like I say, going back to my previous point, people are too comfortable. That's the problem. Our population is too comfortable. If you can get yourself outside the comfort zone, I'm not saying become uncomfortable. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is stretch a bit. Yeah. If you're earning your 20K and you're working for a boss that you hate, well then do something about it then. Don't sack the boss yet. Build up your property portfolio in the background, and then you can sack them when you feel like it, if you really want to. If you enjoy your job, and let's say you're earning your 150, 200K, it'll be a little bit silly, really, to give up that job right now. It's giving you 200K, for God's sake. So keep the job. Again, work alongside it. If you're working for a company or a business where they're earning millions and billions, it's not your millions and billions. Keep that in mind. It's their millions and billions. You start earning your tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and get it to where you want to get it to. So, that adversity, that pain of whatever it is, or if you're like me, where you had very low self-confidence, you didn't really feel that you was of any value at all growing up, you didn't have any money, you had, every adversity you could really think about, apart from a lot of love from my family.
And was it that helped you change things around? Was it purely down to kind of like a lot of love from the family and from your mum? Sounds like it.
Yeah. There's, the more adverse situation. All I'm saying is, the more adverse situation use that power to actually help you to move forward, because you're more likely to succeed.
And what was the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Have faith.
And what was the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Buy no money down deals. You don't need any money to make money.
Very good.
It's a lot of BS.
Kam, you're a star. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that we'll do this again sometime in a different setting where we'll be able to go into more detail about deals and this, that, and the other. But in the meantime, if somebody wants to reach out to you, connect with you, attend one of your events, what's the best way they can reach you?
Yeah, sure. You can email me. It's Kam, Kam, @premierproperty.co.uk. If you go on social media, we're at Premier Property. Got all the handles, Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and so on. And yeah, connect with us. You're most welcome to check us out and be part of our community.
And I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes.
Oh, you're very kind.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kam. Until the next time.
Thank you, Sam.